So,
Okay,
All right, do you wanna,
oh, that's too bad. So Mimi and I are trying to keep some things going. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Hi Jim, how are you?
And are we unmuted now?
not yet.
Okay.
But I will, is everyone admitted?
Everyone's admitted, and Andrew McKeever.
All right. So I'm gonna put on the camera.
The president of Columbia.
Guys,
How many online?
and there's Melissa.
I think more people will join it just sort of.
Okay. All right.
Call the meeting to order.
Yeah, it's 7, so I'll officially call the meeting to order. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda not related to the hearing?
I don't think we do.
All right. Not hearing any, I will officially open the public hearing at 7 p.m.
Promptly.
7:02.
7:02, is that what you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining tonight here and online. I'm Heather Stevenson, the chair of the Planning Commission. I'm here with the Planning Commission, who all have done the lion's share of the work for the last 5 years on this bylaw. And we will start with Sharon, and they all can introduce themselves.
Oh. Sharon Crossman, member of the Planning Commission.
Elsie Smith.
Dick Dale.
Mimi Lines.
Marianne Morris.
We also have in the back here this evening Will Goodwin, who's the zoning administrator, and thank you, Bruce from GNET, who is filming. We're here tonight to take public comments on the proposed comprehensive revision of the Londonderry zoning bylaw. There is a report summary that we have created, and it highlights the proposed changes within the draft. This report is available online, and there are copies in the back of the room tonight. There are also 2 supporting maps. There is the proposed zoning district map, the steep slopes map in the back of the room, and also on the wall here. Our first public hearing was in June of 2022. This is our second public hearing. The summary of the draft bylaws can stand alone as a comprehensive source document. However, tonight we can highlight the newest updates within the section headings of the proposed regulations. To be clear, we are taking public comment on the entire draft. So public comment and testimony on the entire draft. If you have any comments, please raise your hand. You can raise your hand or hold comments till we're finished highlighting the updates within the section. Do your best to keep comments at 2 minutes so everyone has the opportunity to speak. And state your name. Please also note that this is not a question and answer forum. We will take all comments into consideration.
So there's just a report that it's a little bit loud and noisy online right now, and I wonder if we're just checking where microphones are to make sure that there's not undue noise.
Oh, yeah? Noisy?
Banging noise is the report.
Okay.
Does anyone
sometimes it'll
hear that
pick
in the
up
room?
What's happening on the table.
Yeah, I think that we have these microphones here, and so it might be that. I'm taking my bracelet off. That might be some banging.
Okay.
And we'll try again, Kathy. Thanks for bringing that up.
And I'll
Kathy.
listen
And
here.
Bruce, okay, you'll go into your earphones to me. Thank you.
Kathy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have it here.
Okay. There are 5 sections in the document. General, zoning districts, development standards, administration and enforcement, and definitions. We can begin by highlighting the general section. This draft is structured and organized with the previous mentioned sections, a document which has the traditional zoning and subdivision regulations, but it also combines state regulations such as design guidelines, water management into a single document. It serves as a local policy instrument that organizes all of this information comprehensively into a unified development regulation. The goal is to align this draft bylaw with the goals and objectives of the town plan, to comply with Vermont statutes, and the proposed changes affect all properties in Londonderry. We can move to zoning districts. So the most recent update here is that the resource protection district has been eliminated from all references in the bylaw. We've added some language to the rural district section to incorporate some of the resource protection features previously incorporated into the resource protection districts. This you will now see as the conservation overlay district. This conservation overlay district is in line with the conservation area in the existing town zoning mapping. There is now a threshold standard that in underdeveloped areas in rural lots within this district, there's an elevation-based threshold. This elevation-based area is defined as the conservation overlay district. It's intended to guide development away from high elevation lands and other important resources. This is the most recent and most significant update within the zoning districts. And for a side-by-side visual, there is the conservation overlay district on the right, and if you have the map, and it's also very much in line with the existing conservation area, with the exception of a threshold, an elevation threshold. In addition, there are now also short-term rentals allowable in all districts. I think that sums up the major changes within the zoning districts. As far as development standards, which is section 3, there was minimal changes with clarifying language. Section 3107, it's about window signs, language for storefronts and specific signage on each pane of glass. For example, businesses shall have a maximum of 1 sign, which may not exceed 12 square feet in a signable area. The amount of glass may be covered with solid colors or designs that are not integral to the communication of the sign's message. So it's minimal. It was just for sort of clarifying things that came up recently. Administration and enforcement, which is section 4. There are no major changes there. However, in the conservation overlay district, development in these areas must be reviewed carefully with applicants and the development review board to encourage development that recognizes sensitive environmental and aesthetic considerations. In reviewing the conservation overlay districts, the DRB must consult with the Conservation Commission, and the landowner must obtain a conditional use approval in this conservation overlay district. And finally, the only added definition, as noted earlier under the zoning section, the new update about short-term rentals being allowable in all districts. We have defined short-term rentals as per the state definition. Short-term rentals under Vermont Statute Act 10 as a furnished house, condominium, or other dwelling room or self-contained dwelling unit rented to the transient, traveling, or vacationing public for a period of fewer than 30 consecutive days and for no more than 14 days per calendar year. After lots of discussion, in collaboration with the Housing Committee, and our town attorney, that is where we landed today, on the new definition for short-term rentals within the bylaw. Those are all of the significant, and actually all of the updates since our last hearing. And if there are any comments, or whether online or here, we would certainly welcome them. Yeah.
Paul Hemler, I have a couple of questions or comments, I guess we're not allowed questions, specifically relating to section 340, planned unit development standards. There was at one of the many planning commission meetings, or several of them, that I went to, a discussion about multiple parcels that are not contiguous being allowed to have a planned unit development. I see that that's been removed from the residential planned unit development, but it remains in the conservation planned unit development listings. I don't know if that's an oversight or that is intentional.
There is no conservation district, there's a conservation overlay.
Well, there's a conservation PUD. It's in here. I don't know what that specifically means. There's two PUDs listed, a conservation PUD and a residential PUD.
Well, conservation PUD can be anywhere in town.
Well, the question still remains, is it an oversight or was it intentional that you could have non-contiguous parcels being considered as one in a planned unit development and a conservation planned unit development? The other question I had, or comment I had, also relating to planned unit developments, and this is in section 3402F, which refers to density bonus for affordable housing, which allows for the building of more units than is allowed typically if there is one affordable housing unit as defined in the standards built for every additional non-affordable housing unit that's intended, with absolutely no maximum number of units spoken to in the regulations. I do not know. We had discussed it and I thought it had been eliminated.
The language that you're specifically referring to was a result of the law change last year. And we adopted the language with respect to the issue that you just raised, based on the change in the law by the legislature.
So that no maximum number of units is the law in the state?
That's what the law says.
Okay.
And it's a change in the law, and that's why it got in.
And
So we have to abide by state law.
I understand that, which speaks specifically to the concerns that I had raised at the Planning Commission at numerous meetings about changing Windy Rise Lane East from a rural designation to a residential designation. We are now going to be in a district where our neighbors, if they want to, and they can get their environmental, their septic or whatever, can build as many units as they can fit on the property across the street from us. And this is what I meant by you open the door and you have potential ramifications that you didn't think about when you made a seemingly innocuous decision. You're taking a rural area and potentially making it available for an unending number of units being built.
Thank you, Paul. Can you also circle back to your first comment? You referenced the PUD. Where specifically was that reference?
3401D is the conservation PUD.
Thank you. Anyone online have any comments? Thank you. No. Anyone else?
I just have a short procedural question.
Sure.
This is the second public meeting. Does that mean there's a third?
No, it's almost like we start again and we sort of take comment on the entire draft.
Yeah.
I highlighted the updates just to sort of maybe make it a bit easier to follow some of it. But no, there will not be a,
Okay.
well, I don't know.
At the planning committee,
It's hard
the
to
select
say.
board will have a
Yeah.
public hearing.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
and we'll discuss where to go from here. And if this moves to the select board, then there will not be another planning commission hearing. But if it does not, then there will. It's too soon to tell.
So there's a question about the timeline for the public hearing. Assuming there are no other major changes that necessitate another public hearing, what is the timeline and process for the final approval?
It will move to the select board's agenda and they will determine how and if they adopt it. And have I got that right? I think so. So hopefully, so to answer that more specifically, when does the select board meet? What Monday, the second Monday? The first and third. So realistically, if there are no changes, it should be able to make it to their next agenda.
And then they decide from there.
Well, there will be a
Well,
public hearing.
there'll be a hearing.
And then
Right.
the decision will be made if it will just be adopted or if it will go to town meeting.
I just want to give everyone a final opportunity for any comments or any additional clarifying.
Nicholas Lowe is saying the page numbers in the table of contents do not match the actual page numbers.
There are a few that don't match, mostly in section 2. Thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other comments, I think we
Close the hearing.
can close.
I just have
Oh,
one.
go ahead, sorry.
I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work, for how long everything that's gone into all of these meetings and all of this extra work. And I know we're not at the end yet, but we're getting very close, and it's because of all of your commitment to getting it right. So thank you.
One more comment around the page numbers. The table on page 46 is missing some section numbers. It is being noted.
I think we are set with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I have another procedural question going back to what Melissa said? What was the difference between the select board dealing with it or going to the town meeting? Is that?
My understanding is that it will come before the select board. there'll be a public hearing, and then the select board can either vote and adopt it,
Okay,
or the select board can decide that it should go to town meeting to be voted on.
good, thank
Special
you.
town meeting?
You're welcome.
A special town meeting. Don't they, you have a certain amount of time you have to take action on this, right? I think.
Yes.
This is getting out of my pay grade, so I don't know about the timing, but if it's a special meeting, then, and we're dealing with the timeline, then it'll be a special meeting.
I also think there's been a legislative update in which there is a recommendation. So that's something that we'll have to fact check. Okay. Well, I think.
Last call?
Yeah. Anyone online here? Any last comments? Not hearing any, I will officially close the hearing, 7:20. And now we can move to discuss comments received.
Mr. Handler's observations, he's testified a number of times about this particular issue. And I think it's important to remember that any kind of public housing development in a residential district needs to go before the zoning official. And the intent of the state law was not to burden towns, but to open the opportunity for lower cost housing or affordable housing in residential districts. But it still has to go before, as do virtually everything in the proposed bylaws, through a process which is well defined in section 4 as to what you have to do. We highlighted in particular the fact that in the Conservation Commission now weighs in on the whole business of trying to protect flora, fauna, and free access with respect to the laws that govern forests and also govern density development and provide appropriate and legitimate ways of making sure that the animals and forests are linked. And so therefore, in our provision, we got agreement from the Conservation Commission that there are 3 options that they can proceed with respect to any development in both residential and rural areas, which is virtually the entire town. So we didn't not think about the fact that we put in provisions so that the intent of the town plan and the intent of the law wouldn't be carefully reviewed. And so while I hear Mr. Handler's legitimate concern on one extreme, there is the possibility that if you can promote the wastewater in such a way, you can glom on all sorts of, under the new state law, the whole principle of low cost and affordable housing in residential districts. But that would be inconsistent with our town plan and would be an extreme example, because I watched the entire procedure when this law was being debated in the legislature. That their intent was to not burden towns with excessive development. And so there is a provision within the framework of the law that says it needs to be somewhat consistent with the goal of affordable housing, but at the same time appropriate development within the confines of a town. And that is the delimiter that is not here. So with all due respect, I think we have debated the issue a number of times, and I don't believe there is a need to go back and revisit the issue.
I feel that way today.
I'm in agreement with that as well. We've spent considerable time talking about this, and I feel like we've landed in a place that is consistent with the objectives of the town plan and with state statute.
I agree.
Agree.
So I personally don't believe there's a need to revise or revisit the plan that is being proposed at this particular point. And so I would move under the section 24 VSA 4441G that the bylaws be given with our approval and recommendation for adoption to the select board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
There being no other business, I move for adjournment.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you all for coming.
Hard day.
Yeah, okay, it's right.